gorgeous. Yeah.
Learning for a schus of many when shamas, those are here and those in need of force. Yellow Chaim Eliezer Ben Meir Rivka. They were the foolish slim.
Mine.
Basically, there are 74 mitzvahs in this parsha. It's almost 15% of all of this entire mitzvahs.
Only one of
If
the
we
parts.
just, huh?
There's only one of the parts that has like
Yeah.
so many.
That's right. So, if we just sit down and count, go through all 74 mitzvahs, we'll have covered significant parts of Shas. Because starting from the beginning of the parsha, which is Eshe Pastoyer, and end with Parshas Amalek, means that the brackets of this entire parsha are both personal and include all of the obligations upon all of Chol Yisrael. And if we look at Shvi in particular, which is what we're doing this year, which says you're not allowed to recite the pasuk Yudalad. Chav Dalad Yudalad loisashrik socher. Only Vavion do not take advantage of the worker who is poor. Who is either a brother or a girl that's in your land. Make sure you repay him that very same pay his for his work for that very same day. So you should not just go home in the evening because he's poor, and he will be in agony. But he call Hashem and he'll call out to Hashem. You don't want him to call Hashem, but he'll cause you to cause sin because he went home empty-handed, at least on the surface, and that's.
You look behind.
Yeah. The next pasuk Tez Dayan, and then the following psukim, pasuk Tez Dayan is completely out of place because all the rest of the mitzvahs are the mitzvahs, the bulk of the mitzvahs of this parsha between one Jew and his fellow Jew. Pasuk Tez Dayan. Lo yumsu avos habanim v'albanim lo yumsu al avos ish v'chetah yumosu. You should not put a father. You should not. The father should not die for the sins of his sons. The children should not die for the sins of their fathers. Each person will only die because of his own
What?
His own sins. Right? And the kasha is that the Torah itself says. The Torah itself gives us, and Ibn Ezra and the other Mepharshim would say, what do you mean it won't stop reading? The Torah says that Hashem will carry the sins of the fathers for 3 or 4 generations. So one hand, the simple answer is, if the children continue doing the same thing that the parents do, so then the child will be punished because he continued doing what the parents had done. However, if the children don't follow their parents' averos, so then that's basically one of the pshatim in that Ibn Ezra points out. Because he says, Hashem will remember the sins of the fathers. So that's one shot. It would be inferred from Ibn Ezra, that there's a difference between Misa Bezin and Misa B'dei Shemayim. That if it's done by the Bezin, she cannot punish her children for the sins of their fathers, nor the fathers for the sins of their children, but Hashem can. And that opens up an entire dialogue about the effect that parents have on children and the responsibility of children to their parents and parents to their children, which is both on a social level and on a spiritual level extremely powerful. But it would appear that Ibn Ezra says, don't go there, because we cannot judge what Hashem has judged. Rashi adds a pshat, which is really interesting, and it seems the Gemara follows, the Gemara follows, or Rashi is following the Gemara's pshat, that you cannot ask a father to testify against the child, and you cannot ask a child to testify against the father. So it's a question of edus. So from this we learn that any HaRav is possible edus. From this possible, and we follow Rashi, right? And the Gemara says that we learn from this that any HaRav is possible edus. This is where you learn it from. But then it's a really strange place for it to be anyway. Either way, we do it. This pasuk is like jumps off the page. Like, pay attention. One hand, you got to make sure you pay the worker for his wages every single day. Okay, the next pasuk. Be careful, make sure don't distort judgment of a ger or yosem. Because either to be in favor of him or against him, be biased against him, you're not allowed to judge him with the bias. You cannot take away the garment of an almana. Why? You remember that you were an Eved in Mitzrayim, and Hashem was the one who redeemed you from there. Therefore, I'm commanding you on this mitzvah. What's the connection?
Yeah.
What's the connection? Okay, Yitzias Mitzrayim, we're good. We always remember Yitzias Mitzrayim. Out of Mitzrayim, we have to be compassionate. We have to remember how other people suffer. But Zalkain, because of this, for this love, Hashem remember, I know that's why, because we took out Mitzrayim in order to keep this mitzvah, which is
interesting.
Yeah. The same is repeated by the next couple of mitzvahs that are there, like that you have to leave over from the harvest if you pass by or you dropped some, or right, you forgot to pay the corn of the field, you have to leave for the poor. Right? Don't go back and reharvest, leave it for the poor. Therefore, I'm commanding you to do this thing, right? But just said the reason why we did it, Hashem gave it to Mitzrayim for the other mitzvah. Now Hashem says, and for this mitzvah. If it was a Dvarim Ha'elu, so it's all inclusive. This is Abdul Hakim says, Hashem has that. Like here, then they come to pasuk Aleph, Chafei Aleph, that if there will be a conflict between one person and another, they'll come to the Bezdin, they will be judged, and they will justify and make the one who is righteous, and they will convict the one who is wicked. So now, as a person who has done something for which he deserves malchus, okay, 39 lashes, not anymore. Okay. Again, pasuk jumps off the next pasuk jumps off the page. Pasuk Daled. If you have your ox pushing the threshing wheel. So the animal is helping us threshing the wheat. You can't put a muzzle on him. You have to let him eat while he's threshing. Okay, very nice, good. It's nice.
Does have to do all these months?
Yeah. Sorry about L'chaim, very good. Again,
Which side is the office?
huh? But if you compare it to the next mitzvah, it's even harder to understand, at least on the surface. Next mitzvah is ki yesh rachim yachdav v'meisachim mehem v'ben ein lo sira yisames chutz liyitzar yivama yava le'ava l'kalkala l'isha yivama the whole part of Masechet Yivamas. No, it's a couple of psukim. Okay. The oldest, the one who was born after this will inherit. The Machishmer Yisrael will inherit the brother who died without children. And if he doesn't want to, then give a chalitza. And if you give him to it's going to be now the whole mitzvah of chalitza. And it's the psukim are besides the long the number of its entire Masechet Yivamas is right here. Okay, so what like Sashim Shabbat what has got to do with the access to the thresh? So the Gemara says why. So we learn from here that before when you tell the Yavama that she should come because the brother of her late husband is ready to do Yibum. She can say, I don't like him.
Can't put a muzzle on her.
You can't put a muzzle on her. I don't know. Stop from Shabbat.
Put a muzzle on. That just sounds good.
So this brings us to the question how we learn Torah Shabbat and how Torah Shabbat is developed. And if you go through the Gemara and the halachas on these mitzvahs, 74 mitzvahs, there's a mountain of Torah. Majority of Shas is built on these mitzvahs itself. Besides maybe Moed. And the parsha ends up with remember what Amalek did to you when they right? Okay, so wipe out the memory of Amalek. Jewish history is full of accusations of Amalek and their massacres of Klal Yisrael. Do we have to say that that's Amalek? After all, we weren't around when Amalek attacked Klal Yisrael. As far as we can tell, we don't know who Amalek is. We can point to, well, there was this Russia, and look at what they did, and look at the hate, the sin that there is. There must be Amalek. Still good. It must be Amalek. Are we the same B'nai Yisrael that we left Mitzrayim? Hashem says, I'm giving you these mitzvahs because I took out of Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was 3,300 years ago. How many of us remember that we went out of Mitzrayim? The Torah keeps on reminding us, it was on Mitzrayim. The Torah tells us we all were at Har Sinai when we received the Torah, and the neshamas have to come back in order to be able to experience Yetzias Mitzrayim all over again. How do we wrap our minds around this concept of that we are still waiting for Yetzias Mitzrayim? that there was a Churban Beis Hamikdash, and if it comes to Tisha B'Av, we sit down and cry again for the Churban Beis Hamikdash. The Beis Hamikdash was 2,000 years ago. And you remember where you were when the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed? That's just the philosopher's question on Torah. And our answer is, yeah, sure, we were there. And we should be able to remember the experiences of all the Doros. And the whole definition of Yibum can only be reconciled because a year ago, had this woman had a relationship with this man's wife, they would have been put, this man's husband, this man's brother, they would have been put to death. Is or ever. All of a sudden, boom, he died without kids. Yibum! It's fulfilled because there's a halacha b'shem halacha b'mameis. Besides the halacha, the impact of Yibum, how do we understand it? So I had the opportunity to look at the Zohar on Parshas Mishpatim, because it's in the Chumash. The Parshas Mishpatim says if you want to know the Parsha of every if you want to understand it, you have to look at the Zohar on Parshas, the Zohar on Parshas Mishpatim. And a good explanation. And the Zohar goes into an in-depth description of why we have Mitzvah Yibum.
Yibum or Ebed?
Yibum.
Again? What's that?
On the Parsha of Eved Ivri, the Zohar goes into an in-depth understanding of Parshas of Yibum. So it caught me off guard, and I then spent that Shavuos learning with Rafal Pride, who lives in Eretz Yisrael. We learned that Shikl Zohar on Shavuos at night. We stayed up that night. We were in Eretz Yisrael for that Shavuos. Because the only way that all of this can make sense is if we accept the premise of Gilgal. The neshamas that were in Mitzrayim. The neshamas that in Mitzrayim were in the neshamas that at Har Sinai. The neshamas are always coming back into further tikkun. And until the neshamas will have the tikkun, all of the interplay between one generation and another generation keeps on playing itself out until the neshamas have the tikkun. So that if you wanted to know what our personal struggles are, part of it is the struggles of the choices that we make in this lifetime, but the other part is the tikkun of neshamas and the things that were left over from previous Gilgulim.
So, question, then how is there more than 6,000 men?
600,000.
600,000.
Sure, it's more than 600,000. Those are neshamas. Neshamas are not divided in by bodies. Neshamas are neshamas. So you and I can be sharing a neshama. And that's probably the premise why we're even talking to each other. Because the only way that we can reconcile the fact, why are we all sitting in one room learning Torah or connecting Torah wherever we're connecting to, is only because our neshamas are all connected back at Har Sinai. You remember we were sitting right off the 50-yard line at Har Sinai, and
Yeah, for sure.
3 rows back, and you remember it. But you have to say the premise has to be: we know that we were all at Har Sinai, and we all shared the experience, and therefore we're all responsible for each other's experience as well as our own. And therefore, every generation has to come and complete that piece of Har Sinai, the Egel. And if you follow the Kisvari, that the Dor Midbar was a Gilgal of the Dor Hamabel, and Dor Hamabel was the Dor Aflog, the Dor Migdal Baba was also a part of it, and therefore Dor Midbar had to be masaking those neshamas, and therefore when we twisted in Mechicha, the Ari says we will have to be masaking all of those neshamas as well.
Whether they're Jewish or not.
There is no such thing. Neshamas are neshamas. They were Har Sinai. How they get to our world Do they pass through by birth or they pass through by choice? Gary Tzedek, right? Those are the neshamas that were Har Sinai. And those are the neshamas that have to keep on traveling until we receive a tikkun. And there is no other explanation for things that are beyond our comprehension or beyond, what did I ever do to deserve this? Why do I have to suffer? Don't worry. And we don't ask ourselves even, why are we getting a benefit in this lifetime? I don't remember doing something so good that I should benefit so much. And therefore, I don't remember why I have to suffer so much, because there's nothing I did in this lifetime I have to suffer. Or, I realize suffering this time. Guess what's going to happen next, Google? I'm going to have to go and everything that was left undone in this Gilgal. So even though it appears from the Rambam that you're not obligated to believe, it's not an Iker Amun to believe in Gilgal, right? And there it was Shoinim who said there's no such thing. Every neshama comes to this world. If it fulfills purpose, good. If not, there's the cleansing station that comes at the beginning of the next world.
There's no right. If there's a Gilgal, then what's the go to Gehenna? Then what's the
Gehenna is either the final cleansing process for the final tikkun for the neshama,
right?
Or the process in which the neshama gets prepared to come into this world and have a final tikkun.
The Gilgal, the point of the Gilgal is to for what the neshama was put in this world to do something, and what didn't do it. Is that
so the neshama has to, and every neshama has to become complete. By the time Mashiach comes, every neshama will have achieved its purpose. And if it had been right before Mashiach's coming, had not yet completed its purpose, it'll be part of Chavlei Mashiach. So we have all these questions. People ask the question, where was God during the Holocaust? Stupid question.
He was there.
Hashem was there. Hashem was making sure that the Hashem should be completed. Why was the 6 million neshamas? They needed tikkun. The answer is yes. And the Nesiv Shalom says in one of his Shmuzen that the 1.5 million children who died in the Holocaust, their neshamas have to come back for a tikkun. And it's up to us. He said that's why we do so many Baalei Tshuva in our generation. One of these expanding pieces of Torah. So if we look at Parshas Seitzei as the process of Eishes V'Astayr, in which the Orach HaMakodesh says a person goes out to battle, who goes out? Who went out to battle? We just learned that the previous Parshas it was only tzaddikim, people who had already had a family, had a home, and had their vineyard already planted and harvested, right? And are not afraid of their bears. Huh?
Those the Zakinim.
There's Canaan, who went out to battle for Klal Yisrael tzaddikim. You'll see a beautiful woman. He says to a tzaddik in the middle of a battle is going to see Eishes V'Astayr, is going to want her. He says, no, he'll see a neshama that needs a tikkun. You have to bring that neshama in back at your house to see if that's one of those real neshamas that need to have a tikkun. And if it is, then you have accomplished the tikkun for a neshama. You'll be Megayer, and she will become his wife forever. So then the whole Parsha Yibum, we're just pulling some of the strands of the tapestry together. Whole Parsha Yibum is this brother died without children, meant that his purpose in this world was not completed. And therefore his neshama has to come back and be completed. That's the neshama of the child that is born. And therefore he has to inherit his father's neshama's
Sibling.
right? Only because that's also a form of tikkun.
Releasing the neshama.
Oh,
It's releasing the neshama. So the story was told over to us that when the Zayder Motel was a young man, there was an opportunity to chalitza, and the Dayan asked the Tzkas Zayder if the young Motel could be part of the Bezdin. He was married by the time he was 14, so he was quite young. And then afterwards, the Dayan came back after the chalitza was over. The Dayan came back. He said, "Well, you told me that everybody knows that this young man is a big Talmud Chacham. He didn't say a word. He stood there, shook his head, didn't say a word. He sat there like a stone." So the Shkas said that I called him and said, "What happened? You didn't, said you sat there." He says, "The Torah says you ask chalitzas to release the neshama. I saw the neshama of the nifter there waiting to be released. Do you think I could say a word? If you could see the neshama that needs a tikkun?" Of course it was done. But I just... Okay, so we don't see the neshamas. We have difficulty even imagining the fact that we are dealing not with bodies, we're dealing with neshamas. Every time that we talk to another Jew, every time we do a mitzvah with another Jew, every time we do chas v'shalom, harm another Jew, we are improving, pulling together, pushing away neshamas of Klal Yisrael. So the whole concept of our generation says we have to do kiruv. It's a misnomer. It's not them that need the kiruv, it's all of us. If we leave in the neshamas of Klal Yisrael incompleted, then we are incompleted, and the process still needs a tikkun. And for every neshama that comes into our path, needs a tikkun. So therefore, Misas Tzadikim Machaper, the death of tzaddikim is machaper, because their neshamas are the leaders of the manigim of our neshamas, and if we can't do it ourselves, then Misas Tzadikim is machaper for us, because it caused us to re-examine everything that we know about our own purpose in this world. And when we see the agony of Klal Yisrael with those who are being killed and those who are struggling and suffering, with b'chol makom shehem, and we don't allow ourselves to connect their neshamas to our neshamas, then we're not complete. It's not that they're not complete, or that they died young, or they died through suffering or illnesses, and everything, all the rest of the struggles of our world. If you have to take a look at all of the enemies around Klal Yisrael and ask ourselves, what's the purpose? We're waiting so that we should be, as Mashiach will come and bring us back to Eretz Yisrael. Amalek doesn't want us to remember that we're responsible for each other. This lifetime, previous lifetime, future, past, present, future. Neshamas don't have a past, present, future. Neshamas are always connected to past, present, and future, because neshamas are connected directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And if Hashem is HaRav, I say every one of our neshamas has a HaRav, only because our connection to Hashem through our neshamas is direct. Let's just go. Don't forget that that the responsibility for ourselves, for every neshama, and for the neshamas of Klal Yisrael b'chol makom shehem. Through all of the struggles that we have gone through and are going through, Amalek wants us to wants to say, don't pay attention to those who are stragglers behind you. He attacked you, and according to the Baal Shem Tov, he cooled you off. Rashi said he cooled us, so he cooled off the world from the inspiration of Yetzias Mitzrayim, maybe Har Sinai. And he therefore grabbed hold of the tail of Klal Yisrael. Those who are stumbling behind you. So he said, Amalek saw, you see, there's Jews that are outside the Ananei HaKavod. Why? Because of Tamei, and nobody can care about them. It's going to attack those weakest. parts of Klal Yisrael. Yizan b'chol Rashi says makat zonov. It is attack upon the tail. Amalek cut off the bris of Klal Yisrael when they attacked them. We throw them up towards Hashem and said, you thought these were holy? Huh, look what we cut off. And so our responsibility for each other and for all neshamas of Klal Yisrael and neshamas of who you have been through, the bodies that our neshamas have been through and have come back into our world in order for us to remember what our responsibilities are. Don't forget it. Because otherwise we forget it, that's Amalek. So we can say historically what Amalek is, but there's an Amalek that's inside of each one of us that needs a tikkun. We can't allow that Amalek to disconnect us from each other, past, present, and future. Those who are stumbling behind you, Rashi says, those who are weakened, are tired, have no energy. Why? Because of their Averis. Because the Averis, the Anan pushed them outside of Klal Yisrael. And Amalek says, then we can attack him. And that's why when Aaron our Kohen died, right, after Mrs. Aaron, the Anan covered left us, Amalek came to attack us again. He says, you're now vulnerable, you see, you're weak, you don't have the protection of the Tzaddik Adar. It's time to be able to. So when we take a look and we see that we are going through, besides all of the, I don't want to call it the political agony, but the Misa Tzaddikim of this year, even the last few years, is calling it Yiddish Himmel Geshmai. Our hearts should be crying out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so therefore, as we prepare ourselves for this year, for Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, we have to turn to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Avem Kol Yisrael. We're all connected to each other. And we can't we should not fall into the trap of saying, I'm not connected to everything, to all the neshamas of Klal Yisrael. Because if we do that, then we're back to Amalek. Yes, we have to have a battle against Amalek. We have to wipe out Amalek, but not because it's a military accomplishment, but because Amalek represents the disconnect of Klal Yisrael from each other. And therefore, the achrayus that we're taking for each other and the korbanos that are dying because of that achrayus for each other, that's a battle with Amalek. Not because it's a military strategy, but because the battle is we have to care. And if we don't care, then we go through more korbanos, and those neshamas have a tikkun. So there's one of the stories that came out right after October 7th. One of the neshamas of one of those who were killed in the massacre, who had abandoned all Torah mitzvahs, appeared to his mother, dressed in radiant white clothing. And she said, my son, what happened to you? He says, you don't understand that I went from being afraid to being to dying al Kiddush Hashem. So my neshama has tikkun. So yes, there's the names and the stories conceptually, even just to understand that what has taking place is a tikkun for the neshamas of Klal Yisrael. We just mispal that the tikkun should place come to us through shalom, through Torah mitzvahs, through inspiration to bring Klal Yisrael back closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, rather than we're looking for a tikkun to have to go through the agony of battle and pain. No. So therefore, we talk about how to treat an almana whose husband died without any children, a childless couple. And we have to find a way to do a tikkun. So the Torah says, like Sachim Shabdisha, don't stop, don't close their mouths. The neshamas need to have we need to have a way to express the neshamas, the tikkun on the neshamas. Look at the Parshas if you want to know or you would take a look at the responsibility that we have to pay a worker for his work for what he has earned that day. We ask Kodesh Baruch Hashem, look at what we have accomplished today. Give us this, pay us today, not tomorrow. Don't push it off for tomorrow. Don't push off Mashiach for tomorrow. All Yisrael needs a tikkun today. So all of these 74 mitzvahs of Parshas Seitzei, with this enormous amount of Torah that's built into it. Parshas, say for Mesechtes Siddur, Mesechtes Yevamos, Mesechtes Kedushin, so. Baba Kama, Baba Basa, Baba Mitzvah, Baba Basa, all tied into this Parsha. But to tell us that there is no such thing as being disconnected from all the responsibilities that we have from one part of Klal Yisrael to the next part of Klal Yisrael. If we put it into context, then we start to look at this parsha from a whole different perspective. We recognize that the whole parsha, not only the Mesechtes Yevamos, but the Kedushin, Ksubas, etc., Sanhedrin. It's all part of these parshas. This parsha. Every judge, the judge of the din emes is as if he's completed the entire world. If a Dayan judges a false halacha, it destroys the world. So the Torah then tells us, make sure we're wearing tzitzis. Because tzitzis, it's to remind us of our connection that Kodesh Baruch went to all of Klal Yisrael, keep on tying knots, one knot after the other, one loop after the other loop. Cheles, Lavan, white, blue, tzaddikim, not tzaddikim. There's no ultimate to do this parsha. If we start to examine what we understand about that our neshamas are part of a journey that requires a tikkun for ourselves and for all of Klal Yisrael, so maybe we'll then remember where we were by the Churban Mabayis. Remember the Churban, and therefore Tisha B'Av was real, not because we happen to commemorate a tragedy of Klal Yisrael, but because as long as there's every generation that did not rebuild the Beis Hamikdash, if we destroyed it, it's our pain. The pain of our own destruction, our own Churban, and it's up to us to do the tikkun, to rebuild it. We could go on, to go through 74 mitzvahs, we'd spend the entire night, we wouldn't be able to even touch them, all of them. But once we put it into context, yeah, me too. So much pain in Klal Yisrael because of the tikkun that we need to do for ourselves and for them, for our neshamas, for their neshamas. This week we should be able to see a tikkun for all of the neshamas of Klal Yisrael Leisishka, not to forget that that's our purpose. And that Kodesh Baruch will give us the Besura that all of the pain will have its place. We will see that the pain was only to remind us of our responsibility to each other. With that, we'll be to good Shlema.
Good.
Shabbos Baruch, Shabbos Couple.